Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just going to give it a moment for everyone to log into the Zoom. Thanks for joining live today. Just a moment. We're just going to give everyone a time to jump in, and then we'll get started. Okay, it looks like we have a good amount of people live now, so I'm going to turn it over to our hosts.
All right, thank you, Courtney. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to the Postgres Vision 2021 Sneak Preview webinar. I am Kevin McIntyre, Vice President of Go-to-Market at EDB, and I am joined by my colleague,
Teresa Colarusso. I'm the Vice President of Customer Success here at EDB.
And we're your hosts for Postgres Vision 2021. It's an absolute honor for Teresa and I to host this leading global event for Postgres. We are energized to share a little bit about what you can expect to experience at this event coming up in a little less than 2 weeks at this point. But Teresa, before we kind of dive into the content and introducing some of our esteemed speakers, I was thinking we could introduce some levity and start with a few jokes. Does that sound all right?
Oh, okay.
All right,
sure.
all right. Let's see if I can win you over here. So a SQL query goes into a bar and walks up to two tables and says, "Can I join you?" Come on.
Wow, that was incredible.
All right. I have another one at the risk of obfuscating the intent of this webinar. What did the DBA say to the developer?
No idea, Kevin.
It doesn't matter. He wasn't listening anyway. So with that, Teresa, why don't we move ahead here?
Yeah, I think it's time for me to take control. We're going to be introducing all of you to some of the esteemed guest speakers who will be presenting at Postgres Vision. You can see their faces on the screen today. I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about them. We're going to start with Bruce Momjian. I'm sure many of you already know him. He is our Vice President and Postgres Evangelist here at EDB. You probably know him from his public speaking events, his blogs, and his role as a co-founder and core team member of PostgreSQL. You've probably also seen Bruce at one of the Postgres Vision events that we've had. So we're excited to hear more from Bruce on his keynote session on how Postgres is adapting to changing data needs. And then also we're joined by Karen Jackson. She is a senior database consultant with EDB. Karen, I hope I didn't screw up your last name, the pronunciation. And in particular, Karen's going to have a session on PG Bouncer. She's got years of experience with Postgres. Prior to that, she worked on Oracle databases. So she's got some interesting perspective to bring to our events. Kevin, you want to introduce our next two speakers?
Absolutely. So the first of the next two is Tom Rigert. Say hi, Tom. So those of you who are regular attendees to EDB webinars are certainly familiar with Tom. He's a veteran here for the webinar scene. He's a senior solutions engineer for us at EDB and brings over 30 years of technology experience across the data infrastructure landscape, but has always had kind of a leaning and an interest in relational database technologies. So in addition to working at EDB, has experience at Informix, IBM, EMC, and we're happy to have him be a part of our team. He's going to be leading a session focused on cloud database as a service offerings and strategies, and really digging into some comparisons across what's available from major cloud platform providers. I'm personally really looking forward to the takeaways from that session. And we'll learn a little bit more about that when we ask Tom some questions. And then finally, we have Boris Mahias. Boris, wave to the team. You can show off your great hair. He's been working with Postgres since version 9.1. So he's a holistic system software engineer a Postgres consultant, a trainer, and he's also a member of the free and wonderful open source software community. And as mentioned, he has better hair than any of us on this panel right now. He's leading a very unique session, which will be a little bit different from what you get from the others. It's entitled Another Day in Support, where he's going to traverse kind of a day in the life of a support engineer, in helping the audience and us better understand exactly what support engineers do in support of the end users who need some help on their Postgres journey, while also educating us on some valuable technical topics like disaster recovery. So this should be a well-received kind of fun break from some of the other deeper technical sessions.
Great. Well, I know I'm getting pretty pumped up about Postgres, so why don't we roll the film and see a little bit more about what it's all about.
All right. I really enjoyed that. The future is ours, huh? This is going to be a wonderful event. I mean, we know that data keeps growing exponentially. Innovation for the enterprise and government institutions and all types of organization is critical now more than it ever has been. And it's changing at such a remarkable rate and pace. And so embracing some of these emerging technologies is just fundamental, not only to operate now, but for being prepared for what the future has. The Postgres community and Postgres customers together are collaborating to solve some of these key database challenges and to innovate and scale responsibly, all while embracing agility and innovation. So Postgres Vision is here to shed light on what is ahead for PostgreSQL and its impact on the future of each and every one of your businesses. It will explore the unique trends to operate Postgres at scale and all of the emerging technologies and trends that we are all facing each and every day and how that defines the future of Postgres. And so for those of you who haven't registered yet, we certainly hope you're encouraged and energized to do so now. And at the end of this session, there is direction on how you can sign up.
That's great. Yeah, Kevin, great observations. I'm really looking forward to learning more. And one thing in my role, I work with many of our customers. I hear over and over again about how important scale, growth, innovation is to their business as they look to transform their technology and their enterprise. So I think what we'll learn next from our speakers is that we're going to provide some thought-provoking insights for anyone who's looking to continue along their adoption journey. And just from what I hear from the customers and from what I see in the content, I think there's a lot to learn, and we're going to have some really good dialogues. So why don't we dive into speaking with some of our guests here? Kevin, you want to take over?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Tom, do you mind going first for us here? Step
Absolutely.
All right, excellent. So I know when I first started my career in the database and technology world about 15 years ago, cloud deployment, cloud technologies was coming onto the scene. It was a little bit of a buzzword, but that's no longer the case. It's the reality. It's a cemented part of many architecture strategies and investment strategies for businesses from any vertical all over the globe, and that's not slowing down. So when we look at your session focused on database as a service, I know we're all really looking forward to understanding really kind of what you're going to touch on there and the role that DBaaS plays today and how that's going to evolve. So can you help us better understand what we can come to expect from your session?
Absolutely. So as part of the session, which is titled Our Cloud Postgres Database as a Service All They're Cracked Up to Be, we've done a lot of very extensive hands-on understanding, evaluating, and measuring what's going on in the cloud. Because to your point, Kevin, it's almost like Lego sets, where before you just got a bag of Legos and you put things together and you had to figure it out yourself. Well, now it's almost like clip them together and you get the Star Trek thing. And that's what the cloud is kind of doing, along with bringing all of this acceleration when it comes to performance and price performance of components to the forefront. You think about any company that's been founded in the last 20 years, they don't have data centers. But when we think about how organizations are pivoting, especially their tier one workloads into a cloud environment, what does good look like? So in our session where I'm co-presenting with one of our CTO members, Mark Wong, he and I have been doing kind of this protagonistic, antagonist benchmarking of clouds and so on. We're going to share both our qualitative observations across the likes of an Amazon, a Google, and an Azure. But we're also going to look at hard and fast performance numbers, not just from a technical perspective, but from a financial. Because there's a lot of moments there where you can truly take advantage of the cloud, but there's also moments if you don't know what you're doing, the cloud can take advantage of you.
Are there any takeaways that you can kind of preview for us, or do we have to wait?
Let's just say it's going to be provocative.
Okay.
It will involve some research and some understanding of what's going on in the cloud that I guarantee you no one has ever seen before. And what I like about working with Mark is, and I'll use the protagonistic antagonist movie reference, is I'm coming forward with a particular idea and thesis. He's gone off and actually been kind of this independent internal auditor, evaluating and confirming that what I'm doing is right, and at the same time what he's doing is right. So we wanted to come forward and bring this true comparison. And for those of you who aren't in the United States, I'm a child of Consumer Reports. And what I love about Consumer Reports as a magazine is they give you these very trusted comparisons of different things, whether it's a blender or a car. And we wanted to take a very Consumer Report look at all the different databases and services so you can understand technically what you're getting into, but most importantly, financially what you're getting into. Back to you, Kevin.
Well, that sounds pretty remarkable. That's going to be a can't miss session from the agenda. Speaking about the agenda, though, Tom, in having reviewed some of the other sessions that are out there, are there any that you're looking forward to beyond yours, and of course the ones that are being discussed here from your esteemed peers?
I have lined up the coffee cups and ready to go for those 2 days. I have to say that as someone who's been around databases my entire adult life, I was 12 when I started, Kevin, if you're doing the math on the 30 years. I spent the first 10 years of my life as an IT professional. And what's interesting is as time goes on, you get into a lot of exciting moments about how you can do really large tier one things. So those reservation systems for a hotel company or those financial systems for a bank, those are big tier one environments. And when we think about what is the point of us as technologists, we are always trying to squeeze more performance for less cost, for the mainframe to open systems to now in the cloud. How do we do that as we're squeezing out more cost and driving innovation? And oh, by the way, in the time of cloud and open source, making it easier for clients to have terms that they can consume. There's a lot of sessions where we're going to talk about those tier 1 platform requirements for availability, high performance. How do you do this from moving from, and I was raised by an accountant, from CapEx to OpEx? How do you swipe your credit card to do these things that before used to cost $1 million? And, you know, in fact, I did some math. If I think about what, especially what the cloud brings to us, the latest, biggest hard drives cost less than $40 a terabyte. And by the way, that 18 terabyte hard drive would take 12.5 million of these floppy disks to equal from a perspective. So I think where we are all moving to isn't just how do we take advantage of this Moore's law price performance characteristics, but also how do we set ourselves up for that elasticity in future? And there's a lot of sessions where we get into that.
Tom, 1987 called, they want their floppy disk back. Where did you even find that?
This is, I have to confess, and there's actually some of you on this webinar. So I worked at Informix in the 90s, and this is actually floppy disk 16 of 21 to load Windows 95 at Informix.
I love it. I love it.
And at the office at Informix, I was, among other things, besides being a sales engineer and working with clients, I was also the de facto desktop administrator back in the day. So I found this, and but no, it's I think we're at this apex of a very exciting time in technology, because and if you think about what 5 people can do in the cloud today would have cost you millions of dollars and a long time 20, 25 years ago. And what does that mean for the next 5 to 10 years? That's where this gets exciting. And I think the beginning is now.
Great. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Tom. And I'm sure more people have some of those floppy disks than don't on this webinar, including myself. I'm sure I can find some buried in a closet somewhere. So
next to the cassette tape.
It's worth noting, I keep a golf ball on my desk, and it's from 1999. I call this my Y2K golf ball.
Love the props. I hope they come in well at Postgres Vision.
Absolutely.
So Boris, let's transition over to you. So like I asked Tom, do you want to take us through what we can come to expect for your session, which, as I mentioned earlier, I think will be unique in being able to experience this day in the life of a support engineer. So can you elaborate on that a little more?
Yes, and thank you for the introduction. I mean, I think you expressed most of the idea on it. So I would like to explain a little bit more about how I came with the idea. But before that, I needed to search on Wikipedia for floppy disk. I thought that you were printing 3D printing the save icon, you know, the save icon on the files. I thought it was that. Now I get it. So it's
these are still for sale on Amazon, by the way. They're $25 for a box of 10 in the US.
That's good. Okay, so I mean, I've been lucky to participate in previous conferences that are live, both in my previous background as in academy work, but also in Postgres communities in several years. And I've seen that we are trying to replace that with the virtual conferences, and it's a very good effort, and we get exactly some of the good feeling of talking to the people in the community. And this is one of the things that I like the most. Now, for the presentations themselves, it has been a regular discussion among speakers that it's not that obvious to give a live presentation, like we have to do it. So I was thinking, how can I do something that really stands for a virtual conference that is not just mimicking what we do live and do it in a proper virtual environment? So I came with the idea of telling a story. So this is actually a storytelling. I'm going to be reading a text. And I never do this of reading a text in a presentation, but this is going to be like that, prepared. And luckily I have my co-worker, actually, she's a co-author now, is Scarlett Riggs. She is our designer and graphic designer. She's doing amazing drawings, so all specially designed for this presentation. So she's going to visualize the story of a software support engineer, which is called Monica. Monica is the main character. And Monica is going to go through some of the things that you need to do as a support engineer. So before becoming a solution architect, I was a support engineer in my previous job. And then when I joined Second Quadrant, also support engineer. And now at EDB, I'm a solution architect. So it is based a little bit on my experience about what I see, but definitely inspired by my colleagues. So some of the things that I've seen from my colleagues that I say like, oh, wow, this is really good. So I created that character based on that, on my colleagues. And so it's not going to be the typical technical presentation with the slides and bullet points, but you are still going to learn some technical stuff because Monica is going to be solving problems and she's going to be typing on the console and you're going to see what she's typing in order to fix the stuff. So it's not just storytelling, it's storytelling with a technical learning process. So this is what you can expect from that presentation.
Oh, that's great. I'm looking forward to experiencing Monica's journey there. Boris, this is your first time presenting at Postgres Vision, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
So what are you looking forward to? And just with the, you mentioned that you're looking forward to the virtual event, but specifically for Postgres Vision, being your first time as a presenter, what are you most looking forward to?
Yeah, I was lucky to be a presenter of Postgres Build, which was in October. So I think it's a nice comparison. And what I'm looking forward is to, again, talk to people that we usually just see during the conferences. And whenever we do a presentation, you can see what else is somebody doing. And then you can actually know, okay, if I have a question about that topic, I can talk to this person because this person seems very knowledgeable about that. So it's, again, making our network from our community to make the bridges again. So this is what I'm looking forward to. Again, bridge and back to our friends from the community, because it feels like a group of friends. So this is the good thing about having a common place to gather again.
That's great. And if anybody's looking for an expert on database jokes, you can point them to me. Okay.
I will, certainly. I will.
Teresa, why don't you take us through our next two guests?
Great, sure. Thanks, Kevin. So Karen, I'm going to start with you. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you're going to discuss as a part of your session? And then I have a follow-on question to that. So over to you.
Okay, yeah, hi. So I've called my talk, Is There Anything PG Bouncer Can't Do? And that probably needs some explanation because that's great for people that know what PG Bouncer is and what it's supposed to do. So in the talk, I do actually explain what it is and why we might use it. So it's a connection pooler. It's well known for being a lightweight connection pooler. And so I give an overview of the tool, an overview of what connection pooling is and why we might want to use it. So it actually speaks to one of the topics that you were talking about, which is scalability. So allowing us to actually have applications that allow a large number of connections to our databases. So I talk about what connection pooling is, why we might use it, how it could help, sometimes that we might not want to use it, why in particular we choose PG Bouncer for that task. And the inspiration for all of this was actually my colleague Phil Hankinson's blogs, which I linked to in the presentation. So I encourage everybody to read those. But then the main point of the presentation is really that, yes, PG Bouncer is known as this nice, easy to use, lightweight connection pooler, but actually there's so much more than that we can use it for. So we can use it for scaling and routing and load balancing, silent failover, protection from spikes in traffic, for example. So it's really an investigation of that and trying to help people to learn what they can get out of this tool.
That's great. Thanks, Karen. So it sounds like this is really a session that people will walk away with some real-time applicable strategies on how to leverage the tool, and then also some follow-on resources. So they can actually kind of follow some of the blogs that you mentioned by Phil and some of the content that they can refer back to on our website, which is great. Karen, have you been an attendee at a virtual conference in the past 18 months, the way that we've been living?
I've actually spoken at a few. So I've been an attendee, but unfortunately not been able to attend as many of the talks as I would have liked to because I was busy preparing and talking. So
the reason I ask is because I was curious. One of the things that I see as a challenge when we're in this virtual world is engaging. So, Boris was saying he's looking forward to bringing the communities together, the community back together and kind of getting the bands back together. There are challenges to doing this virtually. Do you have any tips for people who are attending the conference to help them stay engaged or things to look for? Anything that that you can think of off the top of your head?
For me, one of the biggest things is clear your schedule. So actually make yourself available for the conference. I think because it's virtual, people think, oh, it's fine. I can just dip in and out whilst I do other things. But actually, if you're attending a real in-person conference, you might take your laptop and you might log on if you've got an emergency that you need to fix. But in general, you'll be there, you'll be listening to the talks, and you'll be engaging with the other people around you. So I think really it's important to treat a virtual conference in the same way.
That's great. Excellent. And 100% agree. All right. Well, we're running low on time. So last but certainly not least, we're going to move over to our friend Bruce. So Bruce, I'd like you to share a little bit about your session on the changing data needs and how Postgres is adapting to that. And then I've got a quick question to follow up on with you as well. So over to you.
Yeah, my session is Data Horizons with Postgres, and it's really a 30,000-foot view of the data landscape and how it's changed. It's funny, Tom had the little 3.5-inch thing disk, to show how things change. I just threw out a bunch of 5.25 floppies last week, so I'm totally there. But the point is that in the old days, the data ingestion was always the limiting factor for databases. You had punch cards, and then you had teletype, and then dump terminals, and now you look at how many ways you can ingest data. You're all over the place: sensors, Internet of Things, mobile apps, documents, social media, whatever, as well as web browsers. So you've got huge ingestion requirements, and the relational systems were really designed traditionally for the old way of entering data. So my talk is really to highlight how Postgres has evolved to really meet the current needs of data, whether it's GIS or full text search or JSON, or the need to do AI or data warehouse inside the database, and all these kind of new requirements for data ingestion and data processing. We talk about them a lot as an engineering level of specific features, but why are they so important? Well, how is the industry's changed? It requires now all this new ingestion method, and how Postgres, because it was originally designed to be extendable, is really in a great position to meet those needs.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. It sounds like a really good session. I'm going to sign up for that one myself. So just to, as a long-term veteran of conferences and Postgres vision, what do you think some advice might be for someone who's joining this conference for the first time? Any sage wisdom to share with the new attendees for this year?
I mean, I think the virtual conferences have pluses and minuses. Pluses in the terms of you can attend them with minimal cost, minimal time investment of travel. But as Karen said, you still got to invest time to get anything out of the conference, right? So you do have to sort of set aside time to actually ingest the conference and not be looking over your shoulder or looking at another screen while you're trying to focus on what's going on. There's a lot of different formats for online conferences now. Some of them are completely virtual, completely pre-recorded. They have no chat capability at all. So it's just broadcast. Others are pre-recorded with Q&A. They may have live chat going on. Some of them are completely live, right? So it depends. If you've got obviously one where most of it is live and not re-recorded, then you're going to have to be available for all these things. And the downside, of course, is you don't really have the interaction. It's not as exciting. It's not as exciting to be eating with everybody and talking, and that whole hallway track, which kind of always sounded like something you throw away, usually ends up being actually a lot of times the most interesting thing. But on a positive side, I will say that Karen's talk from last year was the highlight for me for last year, Postgres Vision. So I told a bunch of people about it, and I thought it was a really kind of groundbreaking talk in terms of how it looked at the database industry. So I'm expecting the same kind of thing this year.
Great. Thanks, Bruce.
And I hope are the attendees here just see. I mean, this is just a segment and a snapshot of the great sessions that we're going to have over the 2-day period. And you can see the variety here and what Bruce just talked about, and just kind of the evolution of Postgres and how it's addressing and confronting the variety of data needs that modern applications need and command, looking at cloud deployment, looking at the different tools that are a part of the Postgres ecosystem, the different users like a support engineer who live and breathe the technology each and every day. So the variety of the sessions and the thought leadership that you're going to receive is I really think is going to be an incredible. It's going to be an incredible couple of days. And I think kind of with that, just seeing the variety of what we've seen here, we know that there's something for everyone, Teresa. And so maybe take us through what different types of folks with different responsibilities in and around Postgres can come to expect, and specific for what they're responsible for.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we've just built out a couple of different perspectives on this slide. So we're sharing a slide here with you, but just to give you an idea of, depending on what your role is in the organization, like Kevin said, there's something for everyone. There's a plethora of content that you can choose from. Whether you're an IT executive and you're really looking at things from a strategic perspective, attending some of our keynote sessions around innovation and transformation, to an enterprise architect, where you're really looking to dive a little bit further into your knowledge of the application of PostgreSQL in your architecture. You know, database administrators, there's always a tremendous amount of content in our sessions that look at things like high availability, disaster recovery, optimization strategies. If you're a developer, looking at things like integrating Postgres with your enterprise stack, to DevOps managers. You know, how do you quickly go to market by leveraging PostgreSQL confidently? How do you better understand security, and how do you leverage the various versions to support the applications as you go to market? I think there's something here for everyone. There's so much content. I've been looking at the agenda and trying to figure out, you know, kind of which way I go. And so hopefully this helps acclimate you a little bit more towards the types of sessions and the tracks that you can follow over the course of the few days that we're together in June. Kevin, do you want to talk a little bit more about the 4 tracks?
Yeah, absolutely. And internally at EDB, we've joked that Postgres is a team sport, right? And it's not just for the DBA, but there are so many other roles and professions that benefit and utilize the technology to really make a difference for whatever organization you work in. But we've decided in putting the content together, it's not just organized by necessarily the role or the persona, but in themes kind of in and around Postgres, because multiple roles and personas can certainly get value out of different and out of a lot of the content within these tracks. So the first one, if you are working within the context of a large business and you're looking at how to really have Postgres continue to scale and deliver the required performance for the organization, that enterprise PostgreSQL track is going to be for you. And I think in all of our customer conversations and speaking with users of PostgreSQL, the 2 topics that continually come up time and time again, whether it's a conversation 5 or 10 years ago, or it's one we're having today, it's running it at scale and delivering the performance that's required for that particular workload or application. And with all of these kind of dynamic changes that we are all facing across architecture strategy and data types and distributed users, and how these databases are being used, I think that section in particular is going to be very useful. And shifting over to the right, you can see the emerging technologies. which certainly comes into play when you're designing Postgres systems to scale. There are so many different things that are available now and that are becoming mainstream in how either Postgres is deployed, or how a solution is architected, or how you run it in multiple environments, right? So all of these different facets come into play within the emerging technologies track. And then shifting, kind of going down to the bottom left on the developer central, Teresa was looking on the previous slide, talking about what we have for the developer, for DevOps managers, right? So when we look at this particular track, that's probably really useful to those folks, and really understanding how Postgres kind of lends itself to the application developer, and should be the database of choice for many applications, whether you are either kind of re-platforming your existing estate, or you're bringing new applications to market for internal consumption or your end users. We know how critical AI and machine learning is across many of our businesses, and the flexibility and the versatility of Postgres can really lend itself to be the ideal data store for those types of workloads. And looking right there at the JSON and JSONB tips and tricks, that'll be really aligned, I think, to that data horizons discussion that Bruce talked about not too long ago, and really Postgres's ability to work with multiple data types, and not just your kind of traditional transactional relational data, because the modern applications command more. Postgres is not just, as we know, right, is not just a fit for purpose database that is very niche in its use case and applicability to different applications. It is versatile and lends itself well to developers trying to build, right? And that's an important element of that track. And then lastly, and one thing that I think really differentiates PostgreSQL from other open source projects really is the richness, the autonomy, and just the strength of the community and the users that are a part of that. I mean, dating back all the way to kind of the inception of the project in the mid 80s, right? It's been an incredible journey to where we are today, where Postgres continues to receive its awards. It's seeing, you look at different analyses from different either analysts or publications or websites that just demonstrate that the popularity of Postgres and how it is loved by the people who utilize it, and just seeing Postgres in flight with customer success stories, and how organizations are adopting it and how it is making a difference for them. And it's not just a piece of technology, but really can be an accelerator for innovation. And I think that track can really celebrate some of the successes of Postgres, but also, of course, what's coming with the project and what we can all look forward to.
Great, thanks, Kevin. And just a reminder, at the risk of sounding too effusive, because we joke a lot about how excited we get about these events here at EDB, just wanted to remind everyone that we have some incredible keynote speakers in Suzette Kent, Jeremy Wilmot, and of course our very own Ed Boyajian, who I love hearing speak, and hopefully you all do as well. You know, just talking about really at a high level, you know, that concept of innovation and transformation, and how these technologies and the open source world in general can contribute to that, can contribute to pushing our businesses forward, making us more successful in our respective industries. So again, I'm looking forward to hearing more from our keynotes as well.
And I think this is kind of the last call. I think less than 2 weeks from now, we will be kicking things off on June 22nd. If you have not registered, please go to postgresvision.com. And we know we're all we're on our phones more than we all would like. So if you're using it, put it to good use, right? Tweet, post things on LinkedIn, utilize Instagram, use the hashtag PostgresVision 2021. So we can kind of keep that conversation going and really embrace the community around Postgres Vision. We are excited for that involvement. I think it's also worth noting, if you want to kind of put your skills to practice with an organization that really kind of is at the forefront of Postgres, at EDB, we are hiring. We have a number of open positions across kind of any type of role you could possibly imagine that relates to Postgres, across support, across development, even across sales and customer success.
I mean, I heard customer success is the best place to work at EDB. I heard that. I'm not sure, but
that's if you want to put up with working for Teresa. If you think you can handle that, by all means, please please apply. Do you want to hear another joke?
No.
No.
I think we're good. I think we're all set on the database jokes, Kevin. Why don't you stick with being the MC and leave the jokes to somebody else, I think, going forward.
Right. Excellent. So I think with that, we can bring a conclusion to the preview. Again, please, if you have not registered, go to postgresvision.com, and we all look forward to seeing everyone in a couple weeks. And thank you to our esteemed speakers. We appreciate your time with us today, and we look forward to your sessions shortly.
Bye, everyone.
Kevin.
Cheers.
Kevin.
Oh, do we have a question?
I would like to add something to what you just said.
Please, absolutely.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
A few years ago, Bruce came to Belgium and gave a presentation about whether Postgres will live forever. It was a very nice talk. I really enjoyed it. And one of the messages of Postgres Vision is that Postgres is the future. So we see that we are progressing and we are bringing new things to the database, and we are and is still looking forward like many years in the future. We are really enjoying this trip. So I think this is a very nice thing to have this conference. Also, something that it is important for the community itself is that this is a conference organized by EDB, sponsored by EDB, and we are hosting all the platform for EDB, but all the content is gone through a selection that is typical from the Postgres community. We have people from many other companies that work also with Postgres, that they have a very independent view of who is going to talk and we have to wait for the next opportunity. So all the content is being selected by the community. Well, we have some sponsors talk, of course, but the content, the technical part, it is coming from the community. So EDB is just being the platform for the community to gather around this conference. So this is one of the things that I really enjoy. That is not just one company broadcasting. We are providing everything for the community to be.
Yeah, that's a really
great point.
And I'm glad you made that. And this is a session, not a session. This is an event for the technology as a whole and the community around it that makes it successful. And to your point, maybe it does live forever, right? I mean, it has an incredible track record. It is battle tested. It is robust. And that's why it continues to grow in the way that it does. This isn't a flash in the pan database by any means, right? I mean, this is tried and true and a part of just key enterprise architectural decisions and strategies. And we look forward to that evolution. And it is about the product. It's about the database. It's about the community. So that's a really great point. And I appreciate you making that, Boris. Thank you.
Cheers.
All right.
You have to say goodbye again. Sorry,
Okay.
because I interrupt you.
We should have asked. We should have asked. I think I'm going to have to fire us as MCs. I think we should have asked for any final commentary before we closed out.
Absolutely. Good point.
This is why I'm not on the news. Anything else, guys? Tom, Bruce, Karen, to add? Besides where you can buy floppy disks today? No? All right, great. Thanks again, everybody.
All right. Cheers. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. See you at the conference.